Warm welcome to this lecture series on organizational behavior. This is our 10th chapter, which is on decision making. I am Dr. MP Ganesh from IIT Hyderabad. This is the outline of the chapter. We'll start with different approaches in decision making. We'll understand the barriers and the biases involved in decision making. We'll also look at decision making process in teams, and we'll compare the pros and cons of individual decision making and group decision making. We will also look at few decision making techniques which are used in group context. We'll also look at some of the problems in group decision making, or the kind of problems which groups may encounter when they make decisions. These are majority rule, groupthink, the Abelian paradox, escalation of commitment, and group polarization. Okay. Decision making is a very crucial aspect of any individual and also organizations. So organizations at every given point in time, they have to make decisions. Similarly, individuals in our day-to-day life, we make decisions without even knowing that we are making those decisions. Organizational context, when decisions are made, the influence of those decisions have a strong influence on many stakeholders. So the organization decisions has to be made very carefully. In organizations, managers are the ones who make important decisions which influence many stakeholders. These decisions are made either at individual level or at group level. Some decisions which has to be made with consensus are made with group decision making processes, which may also have members of different levels or at same level. So the point of explaining this is to make you understand the complexities and importance of decision making in organizations. So decision making as a phenomena can be studied as an individual phenomena as well. But in this chapter, we are going to look at decision making mostly from a group decision making point of view, because in organizations, most decisions are made at a group level. Okay. So when you say decision making is in most cases picking up the right option among various options available, or resolving a problem by choosing the right kind of the solution, in which the solution can be already pre-existing options available or combination of different solutions together. Okay. So when you say decision making, there are different approaches we use as individuals, and also organizations use different approaches in making decisions. The most desired approach in decision making by organizations is rational approach. When you say rational approach, it means listing down or collecting all the possible information and then weighing the pros and cons of all the options available, and using a systematic method to understand and probe more into those information. If required, maybe combine those information and make sense out of them through some mechanism, and then finally make the decision or pick the right option. So this is what is rational approach in very simple terms, which and organizations use many methods, to collect information, to analyze information, to collate information. In fact, there is a separate field in management called decision sciences, where the scientific methods or very systematic methods are used to make decisions by collecting different information and analyzing them scientifically. So a rational approach is considered to be the best approach because it uses all the possible information and uses a very systematic method. When you say systematic method, it means it is less subjective. In other words, it involves less bias, because there is a clear-cut description in terms of how decision should be made, and in a way it is also considered to be foolproof. Okay, but The challenge here in rational approaches, in many situations, rational approach is not possible, even in organizational context. Why? Because one, we may not have all the possible information, or we may not have all the required information. Okay. For example, let's say you want to market a product, soft drink, to a group of customers. Your customer base is, let's say, young adults, and you want to sell this particular soft drink. You want to know which flavor will they like. Should it be more sweeter, or should it be tangier? Should it be stronger? So there are multiple questions which may arise. For that, you may need to collect information to understand the taste of the young adults. So for that, one, you may not even have access to all the young adults in that particular country or in that particular region. Even if you take sample study, your sample may not represent all the possible subgroups in that age group. For example, in that young adults age group, there might be men, women, different socio-economic status, different professions, different interests. So you need to have a sample which represents all of these subgroups. So one, you may not be able to do that also. In fact, you may not be able to identify the subgroups also. Even within a particular subgroup like gender, male, female, in men there might be different categories in terms of their upbringing, their socio-economic status and all those stuff. So all these possible combinations, collecting data from it is very, very difficult. So that restricts your availability of information. In fact, like I said earlier, defining the problem itself is the biggest challenge in rational decision making. You may not even be able to define your problem. Only when you define your problem correctly, you will be able to decide what kind of information you want. So let's say if you define your problem correctly, deciding the information and collecting information itself is a challenge. So even at that level, there are issues. Let's assume you collected data, collected information. Certain information, it is very difficult to quantify information, especially in organizational context, in business context. Many of these information are difficult to be quantified, or in other words, these information are subjective information. These are based on perception of people. Okay. So for example, when you have a questionnaire to collect data from these young adults for understanding what kind of soft drink they like, you give them a certain option, but there are certain options which may not be in the list. So when you say tangier or when you say sweeter, what is sweet changes from one individual to an individual. Even if you give a rating scale of very sweet to less sweet, what is very sweet might be different from one person to another person. Okay. So quantifying the information becomes difficult, because most information are subjective information. Let's say even if you quantify, there might be a lot of other information which you may miss out. Assuming you collect all the information, analyzing them becomes a problem. Analyzing them in terms of giving weightage, which information should have more weightage. Even if you know certain algorithm to give weightage, you may not be able to analyze all of them, because you may not have the right kind of technology or the statistical tool or the analysis tool to do the analysis. Okay. So you may have computers which are very fast, but with the quantum of information, that might also become very difficult. Okay. So let's say even organizations find it very difficult to use rational approach. What about individuals? Okay. Individual decision making, people may not even have that kind of a support, technical support to make decisions. Okay. So rational approach, even though it is desirable, there might be limitations in using rational approach. So that is why it is considered that our rationality is bounded. Okay. So this idea is proposed by economist, behavioral economist called Herbert Simon. So Professor Simon, he came up with this idea that any decision, even if it is rational decision, is bounded by certain limitations. Limitations in terms of capacity to analyze the problem, limitations in terms of collecting information, limitations in terms of understanding the problem. So any decision cannot be 100% rational. It's always bounded by some restrictions. So the other extreme of rational approach is intuitive approach. Intuitive approach means listening to gut feeling. So many a times managerial decisions, you have a choice whether to collect data, do a research and then come up with a solution, or you might be following your gut feeling. The second option is just listen what your heart says. For example, let's say there is an interview process for selecting people. Okay, so there are many candidates. One approach is quantifying everything in terms of their qualification, their aptitude, their attitude, their personality, their their potential and all those stuff. But again, the problem is, so it becomes very difficult to define most of those constructs itself. What I mean to say is, when you say personality, how will you define personality? When you say aptitude, how will you define aptitude? So one, understanding those variables to be measured becomes difficult. Two, measuring them also can be challenging. Many of them, it's very difficult to measure them also. You cannot ask for certain information because people may lie. So the second option available is just as an interviewer, the person who does the interview, you can listen to your gut feeling. Just take certain factors into consideration, but make the decision based on what you feel. In fact, many decisions, managerial decisions like employee selection or through interviews especially, or marketing decisions, are made by intuitive decisions. If you see, there's always this argument between in managerial decision making, which kind of decisions are more effective. Is it by data collection and scientific methods, or is it by following the gut feeling? In fact, there are proofs for both, the effectiveness of both these approaches. So the other form of decision making is not taking decisions through gut feeling or intuitive decision making. But the problem in intuitive decision making is, it's a huge risk which you are taking. You may not be able to define why you took the decision, and if it fails, the price you pay might be very high. So there is always a middle path, which is you try to make rational decisions. At the same time, you understand there are limitations in rational decision making, because there are few barriers which stop you from making those rational decisions. Why do you have to understand those limitations? This is like knowing what you don't know. So it's very important to know what you don't know. Knowing is important, but more than that, you should know what you don't know. Bounded rationality is understanding that the boundaries of your rationality, knowing what are the areas which you don't have information, what are the areas you have limitations in terms of collecting data, what are the areas in which you have limitations in analyzing the data. So this will help you define the success rate of your decision, or you will know what is the risk you are taking. In non-rational decision making, you are not even knowing what is the risk you are taking. Okay, so you should, in organizational decision making, it's very important to understand the boundaries of your rational decision making. Okay, having said that, there are some forms of non-rational decision making which may not necessarily completely ineffective, but like I said, there is a risk involved in these kind of approaches. The first approach is satisficing approach. Again, Professor Herbert Simon has proposed this idea. So satisfying approaches, satisficing is a combination of two words, satisfying and satisfactory and sufficing, which means the solution will satisfy as a solution, or the solution which you are coming up is good, but not necessarily the best. Suffice means it is sufficient. Okay, sufficient and satisfactory, may not be the best possible solution, which is like workable solution. It may not be the technically sound decision, but it is a workable solution. So the advantage is you don't need to like worry too much about making it as a best solution, because sometimes the best solution may involve lot of cost involved, lot of effort involved. A workable solution will make it work, but may not necessarily be a sustainable solution in very long run, but it will run. Okay, this is like our Indian jugaad, so which will work, but you don't know when it may fail, or it may not fail also. Okay, so this is satisficing approach. Incremental approach is do something at a very small level so that the problem is solved at that given point in time. Again, this is kind of jugaad, where a tap is leaking. Instead of changing the tap, you do something for the time being so that the leakage comes down. Okay, so at that point you are doing that so that the problem is not becoming big, or the problem is solved temporarily. Okay, so that is incremental approach. But again, the problem is it is not a long-term solution, it is not a perfect solution. The third approach is garbage can approach, which is like do something, if it works it works, if it doesn't work it doesn't work. So if you see many of the problems in electronic items, especially in India, what we do is we do something irrelevant, but it may work. It may sound very illogical, but it may work. For example, if the phone has if your smartphone has some problem, restart it. Okay, or if the TV doesn't work, or if the audio player doesn't work, just pat it on its head. Just pat it on the body of it. It may work. Okay, we don't know why it is working or why it is not working, but sometimes it may work. So these are some of the non-rational approaches many individuals follow. In fact, organizations also do such kind of jugaads, which may work and be effective. So the earlier slide we spoke about rational and non-rational approaches. Here we are going to talk about what are the barriers which stop people from making decisions. So it is about many times we don't even get into the situation where you have to take decisions. Okay, so this is like avoiding or not taking decision, avoiding to take decision or trying not to take decision. There is a difference between that. Avoiding decision making is you postpone taking the decision making. You understand there is a situation which will come later, so let's wait for that particular point in time. That is avoiding taking decisions. Not taking decision is the situation is right in front of your eyes, you have to take decision, but you're not taking decision. Okay, so why do people don't want to take decision? There are many reasons. One, fear of failure. If you don't want to take decision, because if you take decision, if it fails, people will blame you. Okay, so it is better than not taking a decision. Two, risk involved. Any decision making involves huge risk, and many times people are risk averse. They don't want to take that risk. They are willing to forego the benefits of taking decision, but they don't want to take risk. In fact, these are some of the kind of biases which we will look at in the next slide. But the point I am trying to make is decision making is not an easy task. Many individuals, many organizations, they find it very difficult to get into a decision making situation. Why is it so? The first reason is not accepting the problem. You don't even want to accept that there is a problem. So why organizations don't even want to acknowledge a problem? Because if they acknowledge a problem, they have to act upon it, and acting upon it requires a lot of resources. So better not to worry about the problem unless and until it becomes a very blaring or a serious problem. Not accepting the problem can be because of complacency. Complacency means having a sense of satisfaction, false sense of satisfaction. For example, there is some problem in the or there is a dip in the profits, but you say no, it's not a big issue because anyway we are making good profits. This is just a slight dip. You are trying to rationalize the dip in the profit because there are enough profits. Your profit is pretty high, but in that maybe little bit has come down, so you don't see it as a problem itself. Okay, you're not accepting the problem and you are very complacent because you are already doing better. Okay, you may not be the best, but you are doing better. So that is complacency, satisfying with the current state and not even worrying about the future. The second reason can be defensive avoidance, which means you actively avoid looking at the problem. Complacency is saying no, we are doing good, we don't have to worry. Defensive is there is a problem, but you try to push it to the extent that you don't call it as a problem. Okay, so you take a lot of effort to push that situation and say it is not a problem. For example, let's say this company, there is a lot of people are quitting, employee attrition is high, or let's say every year many people leave the organization even before completing 1 year. Many freshers leave the organization. So freshers leaving the organization is a serious issue because, or people even before completing 1 year, if they leave, it's an issue because you have spent money and other resources like time to recruit them. So within 1 year if they leave, then it means they are not even performing well. Even before performing, you are losing them, and that money you spent or the resources you spent on recruitment has gone waste. Okay, so if this is the scenario, it's a very important problem, very serious problem, that people are leaving your organization even before completing 1 year. One way organizations might consider it to be a non-issue by saying, even other organizations in the same sector, this is the level of attrition. You rationalize the problem, okay, by saying similar companies, people leave, this is the same kind of a statistics, so we don't have to worry about it. It's not our problem, it is the problem with the younger generation or this sector. Okay, so this is rationalizing that you don't have to panic or you don't have to worry, it is not your problem, it is somebody else's problem. So these kind of excuses. The second thing decision in defensive avoidance organizations or individuals do is procrastination. They say, okay, right now we don't have enough funds to address this, or maybe we will wait till next quarter so that we will change the policies. The same problem of attrition level within 1 year. So you may say, right now we don't have to do anything because there are some issues, we'll wait for 6 more months, things will change, or the market will pick up in the next quarter, so we will wait. Okay, so this is procrastination, delaying the decision making. Buck passing is you try to put the responsibility on somebody else. Let's say your HR department of the particular organization, you say no, we can't do anything. Maybe the top level management should decide, or as a sector, everyone in this particular sector or in the field should decide. Me alone cannot make the decision. Okay, or we alone cannot make the decisions. It's a problem of the government, or it's the problem of the the education institutions, trying to push the responsibility to somebody else. So these are like avoiding the problem and trying to postpone decision making. There is also some other reasons where people don't want to make decisions because they are genuinely panicked. They don't want to get into this risk of making the decision, because like I said earlier, if you make the decision, you have to pay the price for it if it fails. Okay, so people panic to make decisions because they feel it's a huge responsibility on their heads. So that is, a few people get into that anxiety, they get anxious when they have to make the decision. The last reason is not deciding to decide. You don't even know whether you are the person who ought to make decision. Okay, you are not sure in the organization who has to make the decision, whose responsibility is this to make the decision. So there is no clear-cut role definition of who handles this problem. Okay, so nobody knows who has to decide. So these are some of the barriers in decision making at individual level and also at the organizational level. So I'll stop here. In the next lecture, we will talk about the biases which can happen in decision making. Till then, take care. We'll meet in the next lecture.